it was your third season when you became the manager.
Hmm.
And some things I thought about after uh, talking to you about that. So that position of manager was, how did that come about? As today, was that like a advertised position that other people interviewed for? Did they come to you, or how did all that come about? Do you remember?
Now, I don't remember everything. I'm sure it was not advertised. I'm sure that they came to me and said, you're performing this function already, and would you like to continue doing it? As I said, the position was manager, but there was a lot of direction from boards of director, and there were two boards of directors.
It,
One,
that was another thing that when you told me that, I started thinking about. So did one board have hierarchy over another board, or were they pretty good at agreement about, this is our decision, not like the higher board versus the lower board?
yeah, well, one certainly the one that I was most involved in was the operations, if you will, what was going to happen from day to day, whether or not we were going to try widening any runs or making new runs or buying any new equipment, more snowmaking equipment, things like that. That was the one board, and then the other board would tell them whether or not they could afford it.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
think that was the major thing, is that they had the the overall finances more in their Valley. Is that a good word?
Yeah. Something I did find out that I was going to pass along to you. I was speaking to my brother because we were kind of talking about, our father's involvement, and obviously living here in the States, and how he kind of separated. Because I think on our previous conversation we were kind of talking about that other level of board members, and I forget how you stated it, but like an investment or something. And so when I talked to my brother, he recollects that my dad made some kind of agreement with the board or whoever was in charge, and instead of like directly selling out, he came to an agreement with them to help them out, and basically was like they just made payments to him until they paid off his debt. So my dad came to some kind of agreement with the board. Okay, well, you can pay me $1 a month until you pay the debt off, and I think he was like no interest. And so I think between the two of them, obviously, I think they came to some kind of a agreement, the best way that would keep the club, afloat without asking them for all the money. And
I know that when your family came up and did some skiing, visiting with Lloyd and Hazel, that it was sort of expressed as a silent partnership. So
yeah,
that is along those lines, I guess.
gotcha. Um, the so with the manager thing, you were really young then, right? What were you, in your early 20s when you got that position?
Yeah, I was.
Um, so the one person that came to my mind that I remember Murray talking about was Gordon Lennox, because
Yeah.
Murray told me, he was, kind of, like you guys, all you guys were really handy, and I think he said that Gordon helped build a lot of the chalet and different things like that. Was he around then, and was that something he would have been interested in?
He was not involved in that anymore. He lived only a couple of doors down from the ski club, and he would come by if there was a big snowfall. He had a four-wheel drive. I think it was a truck, not a Jeep, but a truck. And I believe it was fairly old, and I remember it not having a very effective exhaust system. He would come by plowing snow first thing in the morning. I think he probably had a couple other customers that he actually plowed for, and he would come up to when Lloyd and Hazel were still living in the apartment at the side of the the club, he would come up onto that deck beside there, sit and rev his engine and make a lot of noise, and then he'd take off. His wife skied. He didn't ski.
Okay.
His wife, Frida Lennox, she would come skiing every once in a while. So
Okay.
I remember we had to tow her car one time because people had started getting triple parked.
Oh.
And when the person in the middle wanted to leave, and her car was one that was easier to move than the others, and there was some miscommunication, and the side of the car got a little bit damaged. So
Was that still an issue at the, late in the existence of the ski resort / ski club, was when you were really busy parking? Sounds like that was an issue?
it was an issue. Yeah, the parking lot would get smaller and smaller as the winter went on, because it was plowed almost exclusively with bombardier, and the plow on it, although it was a great big thing, that it was only so effective. And as the banks would build up, they couldn't push them out any further.
Right. Yeah. I can see how that would definitely make it smaller. So with you being so young when you got that position, were the folks that you were working with, were the majority of them, I'm assuming, older than you?
There was a few of them that were older than me. Certainly the people that worked more as a full-time person, as you would sort of consider, like they're through the week making snow and doing some brewing through the week, and they were older. One of the principal persons that worked there was named Donnie Smith, and he lived nearby as well, and he had actually played a big role in building Lloyd's house. He had worked a lot doing that. And
was he a local guy?
yes, very close. We used to go to his place for lunch, have a cup of tea and watch TV. Just basically almost the bottom of the hill, right across from Gordon Lennox, actually.
No, so like on the other side of the Hockley Valley Road, or on the same side of Gordon, or yeah, Gordon lived on.
Gordon was on the same side as the ski club was, but he was to the east of the fifth line, a couple of doors, and Donnie was kind of right across the road from him.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, Smith sounds familiar, where Murray was telling me the people that had the big farm, or the big barn, was it at Rose and Percy Smith?
That's correct. Yeah, different Smiths though.
Was it? Okay, so it's not related at all with.
They could have been related. There were a lot of Smiths in the whole of the Hockley Valley.
Okay, but it wasn't. I was thinking it might have been their son, but
no, not a direct relationship like that. No.
Oh, okay.
Their family farm, the Smiths family farm, was over on the west side of the fourth line. So that's where Donnie and his brothers grew up, and they kind of split up all over the valley.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't realize that he was, or he helped Lloyd, with his house there on top of, building his house there on top of the hill. So
yeah, he was. Well, he and his brothers were all very good carpenters, so they had done a number of different construction projects, and I think Donnie he worked a little bit at the ski club before I did, and in the first couple of years that I worked at the ski club, and Donnie was working almost exclusively on Lloyd's house. So
well, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit, but that was one of the things I was going to ask you with the folks that you knew back then, like Donnie Smith working on Lloyd's house, and then the folks that you were working with at Valley Schuss with your time there. Do you know what I mean, did you keep in contact with any of those guys? Any of them still live, I don't know, like around Orangeville or in the area?
I haven't seen Donnie for ages. I did see his wife a couple of times, but it's been a number of years since then. We actually, Donna and I curled with their daughter, but we were curling in Shelburne, just to the north of Orangeville, and she was in our mixed league, so saw her a few times. Who else might have Marvin Bookman works at I'm not sure now, actually. He did work at a rental shop here in Orangeville, so I would see him if I was going in to rent a tool or any other sort of item. I would see him on occasion, and that's about it. I don't really see very many people. Donnie's brother, I saw him at the beer store one day.
How about, and I don't think he really worked at Valley Schuss a lot, but there's some pictures I have on Facebook of Gordon's son, Ross Lennox.
Yeah.
Did you know him at all, or?
No, I didn't know him.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of got the impression from Murray that he may have, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I don't think he worked at Valley Schuss in any capacity or whatever, but I do have those pictures of him, Murray. I think
he was pretty good friends with Murray.
Yeah, when they were skiing on Murray's run. So, so when back to the manager job, when you started that position with the folks that you had to work with, were they the actual worker bees? Were they pretty supportive of you and like, hey, congratulations on getting the manager job? And was it easy getting all those guys to work for you?
Yeah, it was easy. I didn't sense any animosity. If they had any, it was kept hidden from me.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I just was curious because I just I really don't know, what it was like back then, but I'm just thinking, being so young and getting that position, I would imagine there probably wasn't a whole lot of guys as young as you were. Were they in that industry as getting elevated to a manager position that quickly?
Maybe not. Even in the college course that I took in ski area management, I think I was the youngest person there.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question. I remember you telling me that, like, you thought you were the youngest guy in the course or something.
I can't remember if there was one other person younger than me, but for the most part, the people that were in the course had been working in the industry a little bit more than I had been. I was kind of just going into it as a ski instructor that liked to ski and wanted to stay in it somehow.
Right. Well, that's an interesting question. Did you, when you were there working, did you ski a lot?
I didn't ski as much as I should have, probably.
Okay. It could have been an easy excuse to, like, I need to go test out a run. I'll throw the skis on and go for a run.
If there was a snowfall and we weren't really worried about anything, I know I would go and get my skis on and start the toe up and ride it to the top and turn it back off at the top and come back down, take a few runs through the fresh snow.
That's nice. Another question I was going to ask you that you just said it, used the term toe, ski toe. So is there a difference between a ski lift and a toe, or is that, why do you use it? I was going to ask you, why do you, it seems like you often refer to it as a toe as opposed to a ski lift.
Probably a local thing.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we always had rope toes to start with, so that when you would say pommel lift, always pommel lift, A T-bar was always just a T-bar, but I guess they are all sort of generically toes to me.
Okay. Interesting. So you just, if you needed somebody to go do something, you just go whatever over to that particular toe
Yeah.
and work on it. So when you started off as the manager, was that your first, I'll say season or whatever? As so when they offered you the position, I guess is a better way to put it. Did they offer you that position and said this is a full-time position?
Yeah, that was an agreement between us as to what it would be. So I got an annual salary.
Okay. So when you guys sat down and they asked you to do it and said, hey, it's gonna be full-time, here's your salary, and got everything, all the details worked out.
And there was a lot more hours in the winter season put in than there was in the summer season. So I was paid bi-weekly, the same amount all year long. And
Okay.
that was kind of where, when they came to me and said, you're not doing very much this summer and we don't think we can keep paying you. I said, well, I don't do much in the summer generally because I do a lot in the winter. So we kind of, that's the way they parted with me, was the beginning of my last year.
Would it so did when they hired you for the position, how long were you the manager so they offered you the full-time gig, and then so how long was it before they changed course and said, hey, we can't support you full-time?
I think it was 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, I think it was 79, like after the 78, 79 winter. So I think 5 winters, maybe 4.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is something else. I guess I don't think you and I have talked about this, but so when the chalet burned down in November of 1980, I was just before you and I got together, I was reading that article again that I think Marvin Bookman sent it to my brother about the fire, and it made it sound like they were going to have like a temporary facility for that, like a temporary chalet, I guess, or someplace for the members for that ski season. So I'm assuming at that time, were you gone then, or were you still there?
No, I was gone.
Okay.
I had gone into the printing industry, and I had been working the Friday night, midnight, overtime shift. And on my way home, I had to pass by Valley Schuss. And as I first was driving into the valley on Hockley Valley Road, I could see a plume of black smoke, and I thought at first, oh, somebody set one of the hydrants on fire, because if the hydrant did freeze, we used to take a big torch and blow it downside, and it was insulated on the inside with polyurethane foam. And if you didn't be careful, you would catch that polyurethane foam on fire. Then you'd have to throw the cap back onto the top of the hydrant. By then it would usually thaw out because a fair amount of heat was building up. But the black smoke kept coming and coming, like much longer than the hydrant. And so I pulled into the parking lot, and there was a crowd that had formed on the beginner's run, standing, sort of looking across, watching the firemen try and do what they could with the fire. And it was still standing when I got there, but collapsed maybe after about 15 minutes. Once the fire went through the main part and got it sort of burning on the inside, because a lot of the fire had been on the roof and on the wooden additions. Once it got into the main chalet, the steel overheated and it collapsed because of that.
Yeah, I think you and Murray were both telling me about your eyewitness accounts of, watching it. I know Murray was.
Yeah, I didn't see Murray there. His daughter came by, and I talked to her for a while.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression that he smelled the smoke. He was up, actually, it wasn't on Valley Schuss property. It was on the other side of the fifth line there. I think he said he was doing some logging or something, smelt the smoke, came down, and he saw the chalet on fire. Then I don't know if that time he was going back up to the house to let his folks know what was going on. But yeah, sad day for sure. But so do you recall then after that fire, do you remember it all? I mean, obviously you weren't there anymore in any kind of working capacity, but in that article it mentions, trying to set up a temporary.
Yeah, I know they were trying to set up something temporary. I actually, and I can't remember how he got in touch with me, but the person that was managing the ski area at that time asked me to walk around the chalet property with him and try and describe, where everything was, or what sizes things were, because they were trying to prepare a claim for insurance. And the insurance company, while I was there, maybe 2 years before, or the winter or the summer before they let me go, the insurance company had come in and done quite a bit of measuring and taking all the rooms. So I remember telling him, I'm sure that they have all of this information. Now, all I can remember him saying is, well, we're going to claim the whole footprint, twice that square footage. And I said, well, okay.
Yeah, was that Carl Whittier?
Yeah, Carl. I remember the name Carl. I wouldn't have remembered Whittier.
Yeah, that's the name that was in the article. Do you know, was he the guy that after you left or whatever, do you remember, did he fill your position?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I assume so. It wasn't, it was only, there was one winter. Yeah, so I must have left after the 77, 78 season, because if it burnt down in 80.
Yep.
I had not been involved with the ski area during that season before.
Okay.
And I do know that only from reading other articles that they said that they had reinvested a whole lot of money into the club before it burnt down. That they were adding something, but I don't know what it would have been.
Yeah, I think on the article I read that they were, this is just from the reporter, not from the insurance folks, but it was like 500 million. And Murray and I were like, how'd they come up with that?
I remember watching you in that with that article, and it says 500 M.
Yeah.
So M is our Canadian term for 1,000.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah. I believe it's got a relationship to Roman numerals.
All right. Well, that makes a lot more sense to me. 500,000.
Yeah.
Okay. I see it. The other thing I caught myself, I'm not a very good Canadian. Well, on our last episode, you and I were talking when you went to work for SMI, and you told me, you said, hey, I came down to the States or whatever. And I'm like, the United States or the Canadian States? And like, they don't have states in Canada. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to eat that one. I'm sure somebody's gonna let me know that there's no states in Canada. But also, I did not realize that. So that to me makes a lot more sense than 500.
Yeah, I remember reading that and even intending to make some sort of comment on it, and then I just forgot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, since we're kind of on this topic with the fire, do you have a feeling why they didn't like take the claim and try?
I think that my feeling almost immediately was that they were going to try and exaggerate the claim. So I I wasn't surprised to find out that they didn't get what they had hoped for. My guess is that the amount that they did get, they decided that they couldn't rebuild sensibly with it. So
Right. Yeah.
I know they built like a big barn through the next summer or something that they were going to try and operate some things from. The first winter, I believe, they brought in some kind of a trailer and were able to get power back in to the lower half of the chalet so that they had washrooms and sort of a change area.
Okay. Yeah, I think Murray said they ended up building like a, I don't know, like a metal fabricated kind of pole barn or something back there that I don't know if they.
I think in one of your videos he said that he had after the club folded, he stored some equipment and things there.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's why I'm kind of curious. I don't really know for a fact, like what was the, last skiing season. So I'm assuming they probably limped through the 80-81 season. And then, because I'm sure it took months before the insurance claim was settled.
I
And
I think it was a few years before the equipment started to leave the property.
a few years. Is that what you said?
I think a few years before the equipment was leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that was one way. Murray was telling me that Lloyd was recouping, what
Some
money
of the loss. Yeah.
what money they still owed him. So by